Hello, in this video, we're going to go over the documentation and user training for the Zoho reporting systems project. So once you're greeted at the Zoho landing page, the first thing you're going to want to do is sign in. And we will have credentials for you guys to sign in with. Go ahead and sign in. Now you're greeted with the application dashboard. Our app is through the Zoho Creator application, so we want to go ahead and click on that. So after that loads, we're greeted with this dashboard showing all of our applications. Let's look at what we have here. The reporting systems BI and analytics application is going to house the reporting project. The database application is going to be the live production database created by the database team. And our sample database is going to be the database that we're going to show how to build and maintain and use the reporting system in this training because the production database has not yet been finished. So let's go ahead and jump into our reporting systems application. So immediately we're landing on our file explorer. We have two folders here. The first one is tables and reports. These were created for testing and development purposes. And the second folder is our production environment. Now, as of now, this folder is empty because we're going to go ahead and build this in this video and teach you how the inner workings of the system work and how to maintain them as well. So on the left here, we have our navigation system. Our reports is going to show all of our different reports contained in this application. Data is going to show our tables. And then here at the bottom, we have our data sources. This is where we go to pull from the real production database. And in this video, we're going to pull from the sample database to pull our data into this application so that we can make reports on it. So let's go ahead and add that data source. So the first thing we're going to do is choose Zoho applications because we are choosing from another Zoho Creator application. So let's go ahead and click on that. Next here. All right, now we choose which application. This one we're going to be covering the sample database, but the process for the real database is going to be the exact same. So we want all the forms and all the fields from the forms. And at the bottom here, we can decide how often we would like to pull data from the database into the reporting system. So let's choose daily at 12:20 PST. Just leave it at the default. But that can be customized later. Setup completed. Perfect. All right, now that our data has finished importing from the external sample database application, we can see that now we have our tables here in our production environment folder. So let's go ahead and take a look at those. You can see they match just like the database, but now they're imported into our BI and analytics application. So now let's talk about reports. The first thing we're going to do is create the impacts report. And through that, we're going to go over the basics of creating a report. So when choosing which report type we're going to do, we will create the missing impacts report, the impacts report with a pivot view chart. And so we're going to base this off of our impacts from the production environment. So a Zoho Creator pivot table functions very much like a pivot table in Excel. We have our columns, rows, and data. So let's go ahead and rename this to the impacts report. And let's show how we're going to construct our impacts report. So the first thing we're going to do is drag our start date into the rows, and we want to pick our formatting to display in the chart. So let's go ahead and show month and year and see what that looks like. So now we can see every month and year that's been loaded into this impacts file. The next row we're going to want to insert is event name. Let's drag that in here, and we can leave this as actual values. And so now we can see December 2014, this January 15, every event name that's occurred in every month. Now, if we want to go ahead and filter this to where we're not seeing all the data all at once, what we can do is go to our user filters. We're going to add a start date user filter. So we're going to click the edit button, leave this as start date, and we want to go ahead and choose relative period. This will allow us to choose fields such as show the previous month, previous 3 months, previous 6 months, and similarly previous year. And it's very customizable what we would like to show. So let's go ahead and show the last 3 months. And it's important to note whatever box you click here, you type this in this box as well. Let's click OK, and let's regenerate that report. So now in the last 3 months, we only have records for February. There's no March and April actually in this folder. So let's change that so we can see some more records. Let's show the last 6 months. Let's generate that. Okay, so now we get November 2022, December, January, and February. Perfect. So the next thing we're going to do is start populating our report with some data. So the first thing we want to go ahead and do is show our meat, poultry, fish column. So let's see what that looks like when we go ahead and drop that in. So now it's important to note for each data that we want to be shown on the chart, we can click this drop-down menu here and customize exactly how our data is being shown. Now for our purpose, sum, normal sum is the correct choice. So we can go ahead and leave it as that. And now we're seeing all of our data for event name, total meat and poultry by month. So as you can see, I've gone ahead and populated our report with a lot of fields. And these are just the regular sum fields. But now we want to start adding columns such as household goods, which is going to be the sum of these two columns. Nutritious food, which is the sum of produce, meat, prepared fruit and veggies, deli, and dairy. And so to do sum columns or function columns, what we can go ahead and do is in this data section, click this icon right here, add formula. And this is going to allow us to create columns with functions that are including columns and data already in our report. So let's go ahead and create this first one. This is going to be household goods, and it's equal to the sum of 4,046, and so plus sign for our formula, and then 4,061. And we can go ahead and save that. And let's generate that and see how that looks. Perfect. So we have that here, and it's working properly. And so another thing to note is that we don't necessarily want to show these in our final report. We just want to use them so that we can have our function report to work properly, because every time we go here to make a function, a data has to be involved in the report. It has to be either in the data section, the rows, or the columns. And so what we can do is if we need a specific data field for a function, but we don't want to show it in the report, is we can go over to this show hide and click on show hide columns. And we can actually uncheck the columns that we don't want to show. So we can go ahead and uncheck total household goods 4,046 or 4,061 and 4,000, whichever the other one was, 46. So we click OK. And now we still have our household goods, but we've gone ahead and hidden those. Another feature I want to show is how we can change the name of our columns to go ahead and look better and be more readable. So we can just click that little edit pencil right there and go ahead and just take those numbers out to just make that a little more readable to the eye. All right, so I've gone ahead and renamed the rest of the columns. So let's finish adding our function columns as well. So the next one we're going to want is nutritious foods. And this is going to be the sum of meat, column plus produce, plus prepared vegetables, plus deli, plus dairy and eggs. go ahead and save that. Generate, and we can see it's working just fine. The next one's going to be non-nutritious foods. This is the sum of bakery plus non-perishable. Save that. Let's add another one. It's going to be total food, sum of meat plus produce, vegetables, deli, dairy, non-perishable, bread. We can go ahead and save that. And then the final column that we're going to add is just a total, which is the sum of all the original fields. Add everything. All right, let's generate that report. And after that's generated, let's go ahead and go into view mode so we can see the entire view here. And so we can see our last 6-month filter is active. And yeah, our report is working just fine. So that looks great. That's going to go ahead and conclude our impacts report documentation. All right, now we're going to go ahead and cover the missing impacts report. And so the way we created that was we went to create and then a query table. And a query table is essentially a manipulation of regular tables that we have in our file, impacts, registration, and schedule, but we're allowed to write SQL queries through that table. So if we look at this design, essentially what this SQL query that we have written does is it shows all the records for that occur in registrations and do not occur in the impacts file, grouped on event name and then grouped by start date. And that's more easily shown if we go into view mode. And so we can see that on, let's just look at this record, for example. So we can see the 20th of November, 2021 for Shadow Food Run 336 S Kroger. This record, right, this whole record occurs in the registrations file, but does not occur in the impacts file. So let's go ahead and test that out, right? We can copy this user ID. It's going to be 4085332. And if we go into our registrations file, let's search for this ID number. So we have 2 records here, right? Let's see how many are shown that are supposed to be missing. 2. And if we go into our actual impacts file, go ahead and head over there, we should expect 0 to come up for that search. And there are 0. So we have 0 occurring in the impacts file, 2 occurring in our registrations file, and the missing impacts report shows us that these 2 records are missing from here. So one more thing to note is that if we wanted to show an additional column from our registrations file, right, in our missing impacts report, all we would have to do is click Edit Design, head over to, let's go ahead and expand that so we can look more at what we're doing. And we're going to modify this first set of columns and the second set of columns. These are going to determine what gets shown in the report. So what you want to do, if you want to add another field or another column, go ahead and go to Insert Columns. Make sure you're under the right folder. So this is our registrations folder from our sample database that we pulled earlier. And let's go ahead and add the state column. So let's find that state right here. So we click on that. You can see that got added up here. And we need to do that one more time for the second row of columns for the query. So if we click that, should be good to go. Now you go ahead and click save right here, and let's go into view mode. And there we go. Now we have our state column appearing in our missing impacts report as well. All right, the last thing to cover, now that we have our impacts report and our missing impacts report in an ad hoc setting, how do we set these up to be scheduled on a customized basis? So I'll go ahead and show how to do that. Let's take a look at our production impacts report. And it's very simple to set up. All you do is you're going to go over to the share button, this email tab. You can choose whichever format you want, or if you want multiple formats, you can go down here. Let's just choose Excel for now. So we're going to choose the email address to email it to. I'm just going to email it to myself or our team's email account, just for example, right? So our subject, we can just say, this is the impacts report. Oops. Impacts report. That, there we go. Hi, we can say the impacts report attached to this email. Thank you. Have a good day. All right, so this is how you export it to an email. And if you'd like to schedule it, you click this tab right here. Let's say we want this report weekly on Tuesdays, every 1 week. And we could just set it for 12:50, just the default time. But these are going to be how you customize what time you want it. And we don't need anything through the advanced options, so we just go ahead and save that. Perfect. So now this impacts report is scheduled to be emailed to that one email. And it's going to be the exact same process for the missing impacts report. We're just going to go to share. That's for the impact. So we're going to go to share, email as Excel. Same thing, email it to myself. I'm just going to leave these default for now. And weekly, get it on Tuesdays, and save that. And if we want to edit these, change them for the future, we just go back to the share tab, the email. We can do that under edit email schedules. And if we want to choose which one, so let's say we want to change the impacts report instead of Tuesday to be sent on Wednesday. So we click that pencil icon and get right back into this menu, and we click Wednesday, unclick Tuesday, and save that change.